Today I'm going to show how the development of a substance use disorder happens using a real life example. Last week we covered the 6 reasons a substance use disorder develops: trauma, interaction with the substance, genetics, heritable factors, age of first use, reward insufficiency, high risk drive, learned behavior, habit conditioning, and co-occurring mental health disorders. Today I'm going to show what that looks like in a real example. Hey folks, Dr. Joe here. Welcome back to my channel. I create content, support, and resources for professionals and other high achievers who want to address their substance use issue with evidence-based tools and leveraging the science of positive habits. If that sounds good to you, like my video and subscribe for similar content. When I run group treatment and introduce the Science of Addiction unit, I have clients line up in a room starting with their backs against the wall. I ask them to take a step forward for each of the following that I read out loud. Take a step forward for each 1-degree relative, parent or sibling, that has a substance use issue. Take a step forward for each person in the following categories that has a substance use issue: uncle, aunt, paternal grandparent, maternal grandparent, cousin. Take a step forward for each pre-existing mental health issue you have, such as anxiety, depression, bipolar, PTSD, OCD, or other. Take a step forward for each traumatic event you experienced: parental death, assault, physical abuse, vehicle or other injury or accident, catastrophic weather event, witness violence, death of a significant friend or relative, sexual assault. Take a step forward if you have problematic coping or process addictions, such as problematic gambling, compulsive spending, porn addiction, gaming addiction, anger management issues. Take a step forward if your first interaction with a substance was before age 16. Take another step if it was before age 14. Take a step forward if your routine included ritualized behavior or daily behavior around your addiction. Take a step forward for each of the following as your substance use disorder progressed: if you stopped hobbies such as hunting, restoring cars, crafting, art, music. If you stopped interacting with friends when alcohol or drugs were not involved, or were unable to participate in events unless alcohol or drugs were involved, or you needed to pregame. Take a step forward if you stopped worshiping or attending a faith community. Take a step forward if you stopped contemplative practices such as prayer, journaling, meditation. If you stopped using healthy coping such as exercise, yoga, gratitude, or other stress management. At the end of the interactive, what often happens is clients end up on the second half of the room, if not face up against the other wall. Then we have a conversation about the risk factors in reality instead of just the theory. So I'm going to use myself as the real life example. Let's start with genetics and heredity. I know for a fact that my mom, who got sober in 1968, would totally endorse me breaking her anonymity. With her getting sober when I was 2, I grew up with the legacy of recovery, and I watched her over the years go to the end of the earth to help others recover when people in need crossed her path. But the genetics were there, even though I grew up in a sober household. If I were to take steps as instructed by a clinician in my theories unit, I would take a step for my mom, grandparent, and other family members. I would also take 2 steps for the age of first use. Mine was not only before 16, it was before 14. When I tell my story in a 12-step setting, I talk about how I put down Barbies and picked up Boone's Farm. It's funny, but also not. I experienced trauma in childhood that would equate to a couple of steps forward. I'm not going to detail those here because those stories belong to also other people, and I'm not going to disrespect that. So for those counting, I have 3 of the 6 already. As my disorder continued, I developed routines and rituals and habits around alcohol and drug use that made it learned behavior and hardwired the drinking and using into my brain. Now we're up to 4. I don't think I have reward insufficiency or a high risk drive to begin with, although the drugs and alcohol changed that. I think the symptoms that would possibly fit into that category are covered in the last one, co-occurring mental health disorders. Remember how my mom got sober? She stayed sober the rest of her life, but she also suffered from depression. Depression and other mental health disorders are other disorders informed by many of the same things that inform a substance use disorder. And I too am predisposed to depression. So that gives my final check mark a total of 5 out of 6. But then I've always been an overachiever. In fact, it's one of my coping mechanisms. But that, my friends, is a video for another day. So for more information, content, support, and tools on how to manage executive stress and enjoy life without drugs, alcohol, or over-relying on unhealthy coping, check the description box below for a link to a free resource on how to manage executive stress and enjoy life without alcohol.